The room shimmered with metals and brass. At the back stood a small woman, hands folded around her purse. Two uniformed officers approached and quietly asked her to step outside. She nodded, confused but calm. What they didn't realize, what no one realized, was that the guest of honor would not start without her. Her name was Maria Thompson, a widow from a small coastal town. She worked at a diner, saving every dollar since her husband, a Marine sergeant, passed away when their son, Evan, was 12. Maria never spoke loudly about sacrifice, she simply lived at double shifts, patched shoes, and Sunday letters to a boy who dreamed of wearing the same uniform his father once did. Years later, Evan joined the service, determined to make both parents proud. When the invitation came for the Valor Medal ceremony, Maria used her savings for a bus ticket and a modest navy dress. She arrived early, finding a spot near the back of the crowded hall, careful not to disturb anyone. She didn't mind standing, she only wanted one glimpse of her boy receiving the medal named for courage. As the ceremony began, ushers filled every seat in the front rows with dignitaries and sponsors. A murmur rippled through the crowd when someone noticed the woman at the back without a pass badge. Two volunteer security officers approached politely but firmly. "Ma'am, this area's reserved. Do you have an invitation?" Maria held out her folded paper, creased from travel, but her name wasn't on the printed list. The form had been completed under Evan's father's name, a simple tribute her son had made when submitting family details. One officer frowned. "We just need to verify, please wait outside." Embarrassed, Maria whispered that she could stand in the lobby, she didn't want trouble. She turned to leave, clutching her purse tighter, while the program continued inside. A few guests watched her go but said nothing. The echo of her shoes on the marble floor was softer than the applause for another recipient's name. At that same moment backstage, Captain Reynolds, Evan's commanding officer, noticed a commotion near the doors. He recognized the small figure immediately. Evan had spoken endlessly about Mom who never missed a letter. He leaned toward Evan and asked, "Is that her?" Evan nodded, concern flashing across his face. Without a word, the captain signaled to the honor guard waiting near the entrance. 8 Marines straightened, boots hitting the floor in perfect rhythm. The doors opened, drawing every eye. Conversation halted as they marched through the aisle, crisp and commanding. Maria froze near the exit, startled by the sudden sound of synchronized steps. The formation stopped right before her. One Marine saluted sharply. Behind him, Evan stepped out of line, metal ribbons catching the light. "Ma'am," he said, voice steady, "this ceremony doesn't begin without you." Gasps rippled through the hall. The officers who had asked her to leave stepped aside, eyes wide. Evan offered his arm and guided his mother down the center aisle. Cameras turned, people stood. The commanding officer returned to the microphone but spoke softly now. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we proceed, let's remember why we wear these uniforms. This is Mrs. Maria Thompson, mother of Corporal Evan Thompson, and wife of the late Sergeant Daniel Thompson, whose name we honor today." Applause swelled until it became a standing ovation. Maria tried to hide her tears, whispering, "I don't belong up there." Evan smiled. "You belong everywhere I stand." When his name was called for the Valor Medal, Evan turned to the crowd and said, "Courage isn't born on a battlefield. It's learned watching someone face life with grace. This medal belongs to the person who taught me that." He pinned the ribbon lightly to her dress. Cameras flashed. The hall rose once more, not for the soldier, but for the mother whose quiet strength had shaped him. After the ceremony, the event coordinator hurried over with apologies and flowers. The officers who'd stopped her approached, visibly moved. "Ma'am, we're sorry," one said. "We were just following procedure." Maria smiled gently. "My husband used to say rules keep order, kindness keeps peace." Thank you for both. News outlets captured the photo of Evan saluting his mother. By evening, it spread across social media, the ceremony that stopped for Mom. Messages poured in from families who saw their own stories in hers. The base commander later issued a formal commendation to Maria, recognizing her family's legacy of service. She never sought the spotlight, but that day reminded everyone that quiet dignity can command more respect than any rank. Back home, the diner smelled of fresh coffee and frying dough. Maria returned to work the next week, medal neatly framed behind the counter. When regulars asked about it, she only said, "It's a reminder to stand tall, even when someone tells you to step aside." Evan visited on his next leave, still in uniform. He sat at the counter while she poured his coffee, both smiling at the reflection of the medal in the glass. "Mom," he said quietly, "I think Dad would have saluted you too." "He already did," she replied, looking toward the photo of her husband on the wall. That night, she locked up the diner, turned off the lights, and whispered a prayer of thanks for her son, for the men who'd marched for her, and for the simple truth that respect is something you earn not with power, but with heart. They asked her to leave a room full of heroes, not realizing she'd raised one of them. And when 8 Marines marched through those doors, they weren't rescuing her from embarrassment, they were returning her to the place she'd always belonged, beside the courage she helped create.